What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Weekenders. This is the show where we talk about the biggest football games of the weekend. But for this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. Now, we have this is like sort of a time in college football where there's more discussion because while there are a few more games left, the college football rankings have come out. So as we get into the rest of this month and the next month, we're going to see a lot of things shake up and a lot of things, I guess, be talked about in the context of the college football playoff, which is pretty soon now. It's kind of crazy how fast this college football season has gone. But yeah, let's start off there. The rankings came out. Um, I don't think there was anything very surprising. I will say that, like, I feel like at this point, I think Tennessee, even with the one loss, I feel like I was surprised to see them behind TCU based on the way the committee normally does things. I feel like they do respect, the wins that you get, even if you lose a game. So I was kind of surprised that they did drop um, Tennessee, behind even TCU. But obviously, I understand also rewarding a TCU team for being undefeated. But that did surprise me, and I will say this too: like I was surprised that Ohio State wasn't docked for their performance against Northwestern. Now, you have to consider the bad weather, but I feel like that wasn't the first time where like Ohio State's kind of played down in the competition. So for me, I think I would have, if it was me, my top four probably would have been Georgia, Michigan, then Ohio State, and then Tennessee. Maybe even Tennessee above Ohio State at this point. But I that was kind of those two things stood out to me. But what about you guys? What are some things that stood out to you when the rankings dropped?
Well, for the record, the weather also affected Northwestern as well. It wasn't like the weather was good when Northwestern, needed it. I think that's the most garbage, response to me. The fact of the matter is they showed up very poorly against a team that has not won on U.S. soil this year. Their only win, keep in mind, was against Nebraska and Ireland. So, yeah, I think that was bad. I think Ohio State is getting a bit of the brand treatment here. But overall, I don't think anything's too surprising. I think like you said, the only surprising thing is that they didn't screw over TCU. I commend them for that. I think, above all else, being undefeated is at this point in the season the top thing. So good on them for putting TCU at 4, rightfully deserved for dropping Clemson. I will say, if we want to nitpick, the 8-9s, I would still have Clemson ahead of Alabama. Alabama has 2 losses. They, just thinking about their big wins. What is it? Like Texas, I guess? Is Texas Alabama's biggest win at this point? I don't know. It's a very lackluster looking, looking schedule for them, and I think they just kind of got the brand deal there. I don't know. Both of those teams kind of stink at the moment. So overall, though, nothing too crazy, nothing too earth shattering, and yeah. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, to like piggyback on like the weather thing, that is just Ohio State's excuse now. They used it against Michigan last year when there was like 0.12 inches of snow and they blamed like the snow of why they lost. But like, hello, we played in it too, so it's just always gonna be excuses. It was a poor performance. I knew though that they were going to keep Ohio State above Michigan. Just the brand, like you said. But I was surprised. I called them ranking TCU, but I was also surprised that I wasn't wrong in that because normally they would try to sneak in another SEC team like Tennessee or something above that, but. You just gotta give the teams their credit for being undefeated at this point because there's just not any else, and the way that they've been playing and stuff. But I could see, your argument though for Tennessee being in there because, your one loss being against Georgia, who's number 1. Tennessee's still a strong team. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the end of the season plays out in their SEC championship for sure. But I like the rankings overall, and I think that it's great that TCU's in there with all of us too. So
Yeah, and just one more thing on like the Tennessee thing. I think it's like for me personally, again, I do feel like Tennessee deserves to be above TCU, but I felt like based on what we've seen from the committee in the past, like I'm surprised that they just went ahead and bumped TCU up from 7 to 4. Part of that could be also because the Alabama loss. That probably could have threw a lot of things out of whack. But usually, especially when they're dealing with the SEC, I just feel like always um, they don't always dock SEC teams as much as they probably should for losses, and so I was surprised to see that for Tennessee. One thing that a lot of people did mention as well that was kind of weird was the way that they ranked some of the teams in the Pac-12. So, for example, a lot of people didn't understand why a team like USC was 4 spots above a UCLA team when UCLA has 2 ranked wins. USC has 0 ranked wins at this point, and and UCLA's loss to Oregon uh, is, rankings wise better than USC's loss to Utah. That was one thing people pointed out, and then I think other people had like an issue with like even Oregon's spot in the rankings. Like Bobby, you mentioned Clemson. A lot of people did say that maybe Clemson shouldn't be a top 10 team, but um, I don't know. I mean, I think across the board, like other than those other things, I didn't really see any other big holes there. But even with like a team like USC, you could say it's brand bias or whatever. But I mean, that's going to be resolved pretty soon when USC plays UCLA in a couple weeks.
USC is they're an imposter. I'm not. I know, obviously, it's like, oh, here goes Bobby on a anti-USC rant, but another week for them, another bad Pac-12 team they struggled with. This time, Cal at home, they beat them 41-35. Last week, they beat Arizona 45-37. They have just shown a complete inability to me to put away inferior opponents consistently, and it to me, like, the second they start playing good competition, I'm just saying they're gonna crumble. They're gonna show who they are. Caleb Williams cannot save them forever.
Do you feel like there is going to be? I mean, we touched on this briefly, but I mean, we're not talking about the Pac-12 today in any of the games, but like I think it's just going to be hard for them to get to the playoff. I mean, in any school, because of the games that are left, and then you think about you have that on top of the Pac-12 championship. Like, I mean, I feel like you know it's going to be tough. I mean, they've already sort of cannibalized each other already. I think people didn't really expect the Pac-12 to have so many good teams. Um, I mean, you even have Washington now that is ranked again. After they were kind of like showing a lot of good signs, they sort of stepped back and now they're back in the rankings. So, I mean, it's gonna be tough. I think for the Pac-12 to get to the playoff because I mean a lot of teams are in jeopardy of not getting into the route.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really congested at the top, and there are a lot of because of how a lot of divisions are set up. And Lexi, I know your Michigan Wolverines are one of them. There's a chance that there are some one-loss teams that didn't win their conference. Like, for example, if Michigan loses the game, I would take them over probably any of the Pac-12 champions right now. Same with goes for Ohio State. I would say the same about Tennessee, which doesn't look like they're going to make the SEC championship. So yeah, no, I think it's very intriguing to see how this goes down the stretch. And I think I will say I think they have the edge over Clemson. Clemson, not a good team. I think it is debatable. I think their biggest chance is if TCU if they have a one-loss TCU Big 12 champion, or naturally more, then I think it's a debate. But likely they're probably going to need a 2-loss champion because I think even I just don't see them getting in otherwise. It's going to be too tight.
Yeah, I think There's just so many scenarios where this plays out in these next few weeks. Like this next stretch of college football is gonna like really tell a lot. But you know, I don't personally think that they would ever let two Big Ten teams in the playoffs. I don't. I think that the only time we're going to see that is when they expand it because it's just SEC. They're going to find any way they can to get at least two SEC teams in there. Then you think about that, it's only left for the probably the Big Ten champion, and then maybe TCU if they end up going undefeated or whatever. But they probably put Tennessee in over like a one-loss Big Ten. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that'll be the eventual debate is one loss Tennessee versus one loss Michigan. I think what it boils down to is did Michigan play Ohio State tighter than Tennessee
Or one loss
Georgia?
Ohio State. Let's just
or
clarify.
one loss Ohio State, or one loss Ohio State. That is a very distinct possibility. I think it comes down to that. Hell,
Yeah.
I'll say this: if Ohio State loses, I think you automatically take Tennessee over Ohio State because the Buckeyes are at the shoe. That automatically is a worse loss, like hypothetical worse loss, just losing at home. Tennessee had to go to the craziest Athens crowd and God knows how long.
Well, and they've blown out all their opponents too, and and not let silly teams hang around. So I mean, especially that Northwestern thing, really, I feel like set Ohio State back in their venture. But it's all going to come down to November 26th, anyways. So.
Yeah, because even though Michigan struggled, I'm sorry, Maxwell, and we were trolling y'all for the Rutgers thing.
Yeah.
They blew out. They blew them out. They took care of business, and I think that's something to be commended. I'm sorry, Maxwell. Didn't mean to take over your show.
No. It's completely fine. And I just wanted to chime in and say like even Ohio State, like they're also hoping that like Notre Dame, has a good record too because that Northwestern win was closer than the Notre Dame win. So if they lose to Michigan, like they're gonna need some outside help to really even have a case for the playoff. But only 3 regular season weeks left before we get to conference championships. So a lot's going to be decided in that short amount of time. But should be fun to see and discuss. Well, let's get to the first game though. TCU at Texas, a really big Big 12 matchup. Texas is favored by a touchdown. And this is going to be a same situation as we talked about last week with Clemson, right? If you're upset or whatever that TCU is number 4, well, now you're going to go into this game and it's a win-win situation for both sides. If TCU wins, especially if TCU wins big, then TCU has even more justification for being where they are. They're able to beat an 18th ranked Texas team and they look really good and yada, 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 whatever. Good for them. If you're on the other side and you're a team like, even the Clemsons of the world, like, ACC, North Carolina fans, Tennessee, Michigan, whatever, like anybody that, is hoping for that, shoe to drop to get them, a chance to go to the playoff. Well, a TCU loss, would be huge because now you no longer have anybody. Now you no longer have an undefeated Big 12 team. So, good for people on two sides of the interest. And for Texas, this is kind of a big game because obviously they're not making the playoff, but they've had a disappointing season, by Texas standards. So, getting this win doesn't do much for them this year, but definitely, makes them feel better about themselves going into, I guess, next year. So, Bobby, we'll let you go first as our like Big 12 expert. How do you expect this game to go? What are you looking for?
Well, it's going to be a very intriguing game. Texas has been at times a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of a team. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. On one end they might lose. I feel like I've said this before, but on one end they might lose to Texas Tech and then turn around and beat a Kansas State team on the road. So it's tricky. I will say, there's still a lot for Texas to play for here. They can still win the Big 12 championship. If they win this game, they are basically on the fast track. All they would have to do is, I believe, beat Kansas and beat Baylor. And then even if they lose, they're still probably in there. So it's there's a lot to play for. They have not won a Big 12 title since 2009 when Colt McCoy and that team just barely eked it out. They added a second onto the clock and kicked that field goal to beat Nebraska. So it's been a long time for Texas. This game means a lot to Texas, and keep in mind the Texas has someone on their sidelines who has a statue at TCU. Gary Patterson will be playing his Frogs for the first time, wearing burnt orange. So there's a lot there. There's a lot of I see why Texas is favored, especially with the past couple weeks. TCU starting off cold, needing comebacks, even against Texas Tech at home. So the stakes are very, very high here, and I get the line. And I think it's going to be a real test for TCU to see if they're actually real or not. Because, this is going to be a tough game. And look, if they lose, there's always a rematch in the Big 12 championship. Redemption, I feel like, can help. It helped Oklahoma in 2018 when that Kyler Murray team beat a Texas team in the Big 12 championship right after a Red River loss. So it could be a big thing down the line, but we'll see. It's going to be a really good matchup, though. I'm excited. Definitely a great showcase for Big 12 football.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's you said, Max. Texas still has a lot to play for, so it's not like they're just going to roll over and let TCU come in. But at the same time, TCU, is there anything better than beating Texas? Especially in a game like this where it's going to probably launch you for the rest of the season into the college football playoffs. So it's going to be intriguing because it's in Austin, but I think that it's gonna be a good game, but Texas is gonna give TCU a run for their money. But we'll see who comes out. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
you got it.
Fun fact: Frogs are 7-3 against Texas since they've joined the Big 12. So it's been it's been a dominating performance for them. But then again, the architect of that run is on the other sideline, so we'll see.
Yeah, we know Texas is going to score 43 points a game, third in the country in that. Texas defense, not great. TCU is 6-3 against the spread, so they have. There's a lot of reasons why they could definitely go into Texas and win. TCU's kind of like, this is big for them because if they handle business again, you have at Baylor, which is a tough game as well, and then Iowa State. So all you really have to do is hold on and take care of business here. But like you guys said, Texas, with having Kansas and Baylor after this, could also find themselves in the Big 12 championship. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. I think the energy of both teams. The quarterback play is interesting too because you've got Quinn Ewers, who we've seen play great, and then on a couple of occasions, not look good at all. I think like Oklahoma State comes to mind. I forgot another game where he didn't play so well, but he can sort of be streaky this year. And then on the other side, you've got Max Duggan, who's playing some good football. So a good quarterback game. I over under 65 is kind of interesting to me. But Bobby, who do you think comes out on top?
Man, it's tricky. Texas has been a very, very good first half team. Falls apart in the second half. TCU, on the other hand, doesn't get started until halftime. So I don't know. I'm kind of feeling the horns here. I think this atmosphere is going to be through the roof. Texas, has a absolute just star running back in Bijan Robinson, and I ultimately think that Texas's talent and everything just comes together, and they just have the edge. I'm saying Gary Patterson, a real factor in this game, a real factor. I think they get the edge. I hate to say it. I really like this run TCU's been on, but the momentum is with the Horns right now, and I think they're gonna get the dub at home.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the undefeated road for TCU ends in Austin this weekend. It's just going to be, Robinson's just going to probably run all over them. I see that happening. I think that, just with the atmosphere alone and the fact that like Texas is never just going to roll over and die for anything. The fact they still have something to play for is huge. And that's just what they're going to go with in that home environment and beat TCU. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, TCU. I mean that Texas Tech performance scared me going into a game like this at night. I could see it being very close. I could see TCU covering that 7, but um, I mean Texas here, like the chance to play spoiler, like you said, Bobby. They have a path to the Big 12 championship. They don't really care. I mean TCU's a nice story right now, but I just don't really. I think they've gotten lucky, which is sometimes what you need. Like sometimes winning a lot of, you know, having a lot of wins is about luck. But I feel like here, if they are that team, they'll prove it here. But I just don't see it. I think I'll take Texas as well. Um, all right, next game is also a big one. Um, Alabama, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin revenge, another Lane Kiffin revenge opportunity against Nick Saban. The reason why this is significant is because Ole Miss still has a tiny shot to get to the SEC championship. The path is definitely there. Alabama, kind of like you know, out on the outside looking in of the college football playoff picture. Not a place we normally see them, but um, even still, Alabama's favored by 11 and a half, um, which is a good line for Alabama team. But I mean, they seem to just struggle so much on the road. So I'm surprised that Alabama even got that many points. To be honest with you, um, Lexi, how do you think this game is going to go?
It's all about Alabama controlling their penalties. I mean, oh my gosh, I've never like seen, let alone an Alabama Saban team do this. I mean, I read somewhere that they were like second to last in penalties this season. And so that's going to be how they can control and win this game is just controlling themselves, being disciplined on the field, not doing these stupid little penalties that add up to all these yardages. So we'll see. But I think that, Ole Miss run game on the ground is good. So, them being at home and stuff, it's going to be a good matchup. Kind of like middle of the pack teams facing off on each other. It's kind of weird saying that about Alabama, even though it's not really middle of the pack, but you know what I'm saying. But we'll see. It's all about the penalties. Control the penalties and you can win the game. But if you can't, I think, Ole Miss might run away with this. We'll see, though.
Yeah, no, I mean copy and paste in my opinion from what I said last week. It's penalties, it's just they play so poorly on the road. They're undisciplined, they're unfocused. And I mean, look, this is probably the lowest stakes game for the Tide they've had since I believe 2011. I believe this is the last time they've had two losses this early in a season, which is crazy to say in November. They're probably out of the playoff, and I don't see it getting better because Ole Miss is still going to give them their best shot. Uh, that's kind of the curse of being Alabama, being the top dog. No matter what stadium you roll into, everyone's trying to take your damn head off. And Ole Miss, they don't care about the CFP. They don't care about that. What they're focused on is beating the hell out of Alabama. And personally, I kind of think they have the energy to do it. I think that crowd's going to be rocking. And I think the Tide are in a really, like, this thing is going to get ugly, I think.
Yeah, one thing you guys mentioned was penalties, turnovers as well. I think we've talked about turnovers quite a few times when we've covered Alabama games, but they're -5 right now turnover differential. So, very uncharacteristic qualities of Alabama teams, both in the penalties and in the turnovers. They're going to have to keep that under control in this as well. But yeah, I mean, with Ole Miss having so much still to play for, uh, this is going to be a really tough road environment for them. Um, Ole Miss as not looking past Alabama by any means, but they do have a favorable road after this if they they're going to need a little help, but to get to the SEC championship, this is going to be huge for them. So it kind of seems like all the motivation is one sided. I'm sure, like, it's unthinkable for an Alabama team to lose 3 regular season games, but this is why I put this game on here for us to talk about, because I mean this is an impossible game to predict from like a who wants it more standpoint, but I mean Alabama just is not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the whoever wins. It's essentially the pray that LSU trips up at Arkansas or at A&M Bowl,
Yeah.
because that's the only way either of these teams is winning the SEC West and punching their ticket to Atlanta. So yeah, it's. I will say I think that bothers Ole Miss a little less though. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I agree though that like Alabama, the discipline is an issue, but they're so damn talented that they can make any game, a good game.
Yeah, for sure. What's your while you're on it, Bobby? What's your prediction for the game?
I'm gonna go Ole Miss. I think they squeak ahead. I think they have enough, enough talent. I think Lane Kiffin is good enough as a coach, and I think that atmosphere is going to be, pretty crazy. And look, we've seen Ole Miss do it in the past. I think they find a way to get a win here. I think they make it 2 straight for the Tide. First time since a long time, I believe. I believe 2013 was the last time they lost 2 in a row. So it's
That's wild. Oh, must be nice.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I was like looking up some stuff really quick too, and I'm like looking on this like Rebels are 21-0 under Lane Kiffin when leading after 3 quarters. So that's super intriguing to me because I'm going to be like looking at that 3rd quarter score, and then I'll probably make my assessment there because I really don't know who's going to win this. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark and give it to Ole Miss right now because it's a home environment, but it's just, I can't say, who's going to win, who has the edge, because I feel like both these teams are pretty even. And that's saying a lot about Alabama, just to say that enough. So I'm taking Ole Miss, with the upset at home in their environment.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Alabama. This is really tough. This is really, really tough for me to pick, because it's kind of going against everything that like I've seen with my eyes. But I think even if it's close, Alabama will just be able to out talent Ole Miss. I don't think it'll be. I think Ole Miss is a great team, and I'm not going to be surprised if they pull this out. But I feel like catching Alabama after a loss is got to be tough. Got to be tough. So it's a stay away for me from a betting perspective, but like from just picking a game, even on the road, I feel like Alabama is just too much of a good team to lose back-to-back games, which is why they haven't done it in a long time. But if Mississippi were to win, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, Alabama is, for those who might think about betting this game, Alabama's actually 3-6 against the spread, but Ole Miss is 1-6-2. So both teams kind of like shattering expectations in terms of some of these lines. But there you have it. We'll see what happens. Alabama is favored by 11.5. All right, let's get to our last college game. This is the first time this year I've got to talk about North Carolina. We've talked about Michigan, we've talked about Oklahoma. North Carolina finally gets on the docket for the Weekenders, which I'm excited about. It's North Carolina at Wake Forest. This game is interesting because although Wake Forest is no longer ranked, they've sort of been, one of the top teams in the ACC all year. Had a very unfortunate loss to Louisville, and then tough game to follow in Raleigh against NC State. So definitely not like a cupcake by any means in terms of in terms of a game, but Wake Forest, has been one of the better teams in the ACC, and North Carolina, um, obviously, pretty much could lose this game and still make it to the ACC championship. That's not really in jeopardy, but what's more so, I guess, at stake here is any shot of North Carolina making it to the college football playoff relies on them surviving in this environment. So um, we talked about a bunch of different scenarios. We talked about how things could shake. Um, the ACC is not completely out of the picture in terms of the college football playoff, but obviously North Carolina being a team that at this point looks like they could get there, they're going to have to go to Wake Forest and win this game. So my question, to you all is watching for. I'll put it this way: Wake Forest has been good this year, but they've been sort of on a slide. Sam Hartman was kind of broken, turnovers, yada yada yada. North Carolina's been pretty good, consistent all year. For you guys, tell me what you think North Carolina needs to do to avoid allowing this game to be a letdown. Even though Wake Forest has been a good team this year, but this could be a letdown spot if they don't take care of business against a team that is obviously going a different direction.
Well, I think they're going to have to make things really tough on Sam Hartman. This Wake team has been, honestly, the whole ACC outside of Clemson has been just bafflingly confusing. I did not, whatever the hell happened to Wake Forest last week was shocking. Same with that just weird blowout at Louisville as well. This Wake team, they're 2-3, even though they were just ranked earlier. They're 2-3 in the ACC. Their only wins, I will say, a good win against Florida State on the road, and then Boston College, one of the worst teams in FBS. So they're a team that I feel like is probably one of the more fraudulent 6-3s in the country. But at the same time, they're dangerous. It's at home. Sam Hartman can get hot. So if you can hit him early, make things difficult on them. I like UNC and Drake May here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's really just about putting it down and run with it and not letting up. And, with Drake May playing out of his mind, right now, he's just got to let it rain and really give this Wake Forest defense a run to make sure that they don't kind of escape with this in that home environment.
Yeah, one thing we've seen the last few weeks is kind of a weird. We kind of talked about it, I believe, with the TCU and Texas game, but North Carolina's been a better second half team than first half. So with Duke, Pitt, those games, you saw it a little bit last week against Virginia. Like North Carolina will kind of have a slow start against those teams, and then come out in the second half. I believe they've allowed like 8 points a game in the second half in the past, few weeks, and only allowing about 24 points a game to ACC teams in general. So playing better defense in the second half, offense is picking up. I think going into Wake Forest, if you can do your best to not let the game become a shootout in the first half, your team's pretty good in the second half and can keep the game close. And I am very much not worried about the way Drake Mayo played because he's been the most consistent factor of this team, and the reason why the Tar Heels are 8-1. But all that put together, I think North Carolina has a chance. I forgot, lost some train of thought for my other question, but Wake Forest is favored by 3.5. I wasn't very surprised by that because I think Wake Forest, even though they have had those bad losses, is still a very good team. but what's your guys' prediction for the game?
I think that North Carolina is going to win. I think Wake Forest has been too inconsistent. Crazy amount of turnovers, especially that Louisville game. But UNC is just on a tear right now, and they're playing so well. Their quarterback is playing well, and I just don't think that Wake Forest can muster up enough to stop them, even though it's at home. So I got UNC in this one.
In those old cartoons where there's I don't know, like something under a little box, and there's a little string where you can pull, the stick, and the box falls down. Like it's like a very obvious trap. This line feels like that because I love UNC plus 3.5 here, but at the same time, it's there for a reason, and I feel like it's a trap, and I don't like it. So if I'm not gonna bet this one. I'm not gonna pick this one. In terms of I like North Carolina for sure, but something's going on here. Something is weird with this line. I don't like it, and I'm not taking the bet or the bait. But yeah, UNC all the way. Logically, it makes total sense to back the Tar Heels. But then again, yeah, it just feels weird.
So for me, I think it's I think Vegas is saying. We're waiting on the defense to crack, right? Because the defense was so bad in the beginning of the season. And I think we see this with a lot of teams, right? Like your first impression often lasts longer than it should. So, for example, with Oregon, they get hosed by Georgia, and it's taking people a long time to forget that and to take Oregon as a serious threat because of the Georgia game. With North Carolina, I think those first games where they're giving up 60 or whatever it was to Appalachian State, they're not playing good defense. They're whatever. I think that's left a bad taste in people's mouths. And even though the stats I just gave you guys, like them only allowing about 24 points, to ACC teams this year, them only allowing 8 points in the second half per game this year, over the last few weeks, like that. I think while that's the case, I think Vegas is still like this is a spot where we feel like maybe Wake Forest exploits the defense. Maybe Sam Hartman, comes out of the funk, and is able to get that close win. So I don't know. I'll tell you this though: Wake Forest and UNC games have been absolutely insane. If you look at the past 2 years, they literally were the exact same. Wake Forest got a big lead, and Sam Howell brought UNC back and ended up winning both of those games. So very, very weird results in the last 2 years for UNC Wake Forest games, but we'll see how this version goes. Hopefully, it's not really weird. I like a normal game for my health, but we'll.
It doesn't seem like UNC's been giving that to you. They've
No.
only won by more than 3 once on the road, and that was Georgia State.
Yeah. There's it's very hard to just have a normal game, but I'm hoping that maybe this one will be. But yeah, definitely excited to see how it goes. Obviously, I like North Carolina a lot, but we'll see what happens. All right, cool. Let's move on to the NFL. 2 really intriguing games this week that we're going to dive into. The first is the Vikings and Bills. Bills is our favorite by 3.5. Had an embarrassing loss to the New York Jets this past week. The Vikings are doing great. They seem to be the clear front runner for the NFC North because the Packers, which we'll talk about next, don't seem to be doing so well. And the Vikings, I think before the season, I saw them being a team that was capable of winning the division. I felt like in a lot of ways Mike Zimmer was holding them back, particularly the offense. But now it seems like with their new coach, the offense is humming. They're playing pretty well all across the board. And I think I'm not surprised. I mean, 7-1 is really good, but I'm not surprised that they're winning games. I'll just put it that way. But this is a big test at Bills. Tough environment, but it is at 1 o'clock, so maybe Kirk Cousins will not be that bad. Lexi, how do you feel like this game is going to go?
All I keep thinking about is Kirk on that plane with all those with all those chains on. Um, they're it's wild just seeing how good they're doing and really how good Kirk is doing because he's so inconsistent to me. And I feel like he's always been like the guy who's gotten away with getting paid all this money. And you're like, what has he even done? And I'm impressed with them this year. I'm really excited for this game, though, because I love the Bills. I think it's going to be an excellent matchup. You got, two of honestly, hands down, some of the best teams in the league matching up that don't do it often either. So I'm excited. It's going to be a battle, though. I think that Bills defense is going to give the Vikings offense a run, and Vikings defense is going to give Bills offense. So it's a pretty good matchup. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this one for sure. I Buffalo obviously struggled last week, but no, I think at home it's a different vibe, a different energy, and as you are very aware of and very proud of, the Vikings have been incredible this season. You were all over that in preseason for sure. So I'm excited for it. These two teams don't match up a lot, obviously, because it's a outside of division matchup. But I'm pumped. I like Buffalo here, but I honestly anything can happen. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I wish I had a Kirk Cousins in cold weather stat. Because the weather's going to be 37 degrees with light snow, 13-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, he plays in Minnesota. His career started in Washington. Minnesota has the dome. Washington was obviously outdoors, but
he was a Big Ten quarterback up in the snow.
Yeah,
Michigan
he played
too,
at Michigan
so
State.
he knows that cold.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I feel
that's not a quarterback you want to be like, oh, but what is his record in the cold? Though I'm curious.
I don't know. I'm gonna look that up.
Okay, I thought you had that. Sorry.
Their record is 2-1 outdoors this year, but I don't know all the places they played outdoors. Let me see if I can quickly find it. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting game. Buffalo kind of got humbled with the Jets loss, and this is something that I'm pretty sure I've said on the show before. Something I believe in. I think good teams that get embarrassed, I'm afraid of them the next week because they usually, find a way to win and win in convincing fashion. Which is why I'm like, man, the Alabama Ole Miss stay away because Alabama is looking for blood, but that Ole Miss team is good. So, I have no clue what his record is, but whatever. Yeah, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Bills come out, especially at home. But I actually do think that the Vikings are going to be able to put points up. Now the Buffalo's still first in points to yard, first in points allowed, in yards allowed. So they're playing really good defense. But I think if the Vikings can come in and run the ball and control the pace, that'll be the ticket to throw because that's one thing Buffalo isn't good at is running the ball. They have to do everything. They have to do everything through the air. So if the Vikings can control the game with running the ball, I think they have a better shot. But we'll see who they take. I like the Bills, but what about you guys?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bills here. Like you said, with great teams, that are normally very disciplined in their wins and everything, that Bills are going to be on a mission. They don't want to have anything else slip up. Josh Allen is going to be on a tear, as well as the Vikings have played. This is in Buffalo. Josh is going to get a hold of his team and just win the game. I don't really know by how much,
Yeah,
but he's going to do
no,
it.
no, I know, and it's interesting you brought up that cold weather stat because I did a couple did a little bit of research. Apparently, he's not played a lot. Last year, I found a Reddit post that said he's only played in one game in his career, one cold game in his career, and he was apparently awful. He threw like 3 picks. So, and not only that, but Kirk Cousins is not good in big games, and I would call this a big game. So, I think he shies away from it, and maybe not shies away, but I think the Bills get right here and get a big win and get a cover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love the Bills in this game. It'll be interesting to see. Really good game amongst a lot of nonsense this week. But let's get to the second NFL game. Should be interesting when we talk about where these two teams are at right now, and that's Packers at. Excuse me, the Cowboys at the Packers. The Cowboys seem to be, playing really well, especially on defense with Micah Parsons looking like a DPOY candidate. And then, of course, the offense complementing that, although it seems like they're in the Odell Beckham Jr. sweepstakes or, looking for some more pieces to add. But anyway, Cowboys go to Green Bay, who is coming off a loss to Lexi's Lions. Lexi, you got to see the Packers up close in person just last week, and the Packers. I think again, not to toot my own horn or whatever, but like I feel like the struggles with the Packers. I didn't think it was going to be this bad, but a lot of the things I felt like you could see coming, especially with the fact that they had taken such a downgrade at receiver, and now it just seems like it's really been affecting the team. But what did you see in that Packers game against the Lions, and what can the Cowboys exploit to make the Packers be even worse than they are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been like the tale is all the time that, Packers have never given Aaron Rodgers good receivers. And I just think that it's finally caught up. He's just not in the same mindset as he always was. And I mean, yes, he always whines and complains and whatnot. But when you just watch him this year, and I can kind of see a little bit of it in like Tom Brady too, but Tom is just on another level up to that win. But with Aaron Rodgers, he's just not in it. He's not. He wants to say he is, but he's not. He's got all that stuff going on. But if you just piss him off and get him upset now, I think that's the whole thing. Get under his skin quickly because he doesn't have that same, fighter's mentality that he once did. I'm going to throw a Hail Mary with 3 seconds left and we're going to get it. Like, it's just not there anymore. It's depleted. The franchise right now is in shambles and I am loving every bit of it. But, if the Cowboys can just control the game, don't let Aaron Rodgers, get any kind of quick hits or any kind of confidence. If you could just keep crushing him, he's going to just fall apart. And like he lost to the Lions, he can lose to the Cowboys much easier. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, I think he must have left behind a lot of ability on that ayahuasca trip. I don't know whatever happened there. It really took it out of him. But no, you're right. The Packers have been in shambles. He's been in shambles. It's been a mess. But at the same time, it's hard for me to mentally separate myself from what the Cowboys have been in this series, which is awful. The Packers have had their number. Aaron Rodgers has had their number. And, frankly, it's, I know the past doesn't determine the future, but it's hard to feel with the first time the Cowboys are going back to Lambeau since 2016 that I don't know. I got that weird vibe, like think about Brady last week, he looked garbage, but he turned it around, showed up when they needed it. I kind of wonder if Rodgers can do the same thing here.
It's just a lot to ask, honestly. And again, like, I mean, we talk about the Cowboys a lot in terms of in the context of like, they don't always they can be fool's gold at times, but I think the way that defense is playing, like in this situation, Aaron Rodgers is capable of a lot, but I feel like, you know, give the Cowboys credit. Like, this is just a tough ask, and the Cowboys themselves, I mean, have a lot to play for. It's not like they're sitting at the top of the division and they're chilling or whatever. They can afford to lose. If they lose, is it the end of the world, especially in the weak NFC? Absolutely not. But they're trying to also keep pace with Philadelphia, and their offense like isn't amazing, but I think they have enough to at least outscore the Packers. Um, 14th in terms of points per game compared to the Packers, who are at 27th. Again, the Cowboys playing great on defense in terms of being third in points allowed, 10th in yards allowed, and the Packers are pretty much middle of the pack in terms of when it comes to passing and rushing yards per game. Packers also a -5 turnover differential to the Cowboys +6, which is third in the league. So the Cowboys defensively, I think, is probably too much for this Packers team. Cowboys -5. I actually like it. I actually like it. I think the Cowboys can win it. Can definitely win the game and cover.
Yeah. No, I think Dallas is a better team. They have a lot to play for, but as somebody who has had a lot of who has been adjacent to the Dallas Cowboys for his entire life, I know what the Cowboys do, and they just find a way to choke it up and lose a situation like this. They have only won in Lambeau Field twice in their entire history in this storied rivalry, which is something that is just absolutely baffling to me. And I don't know. I have a weird vibe about this one. I'm gonna go Green Bay +5. But I don't know. I will say, is it a trash pick? Probably, because it's only going on vibes and history. But sometimes that works. So I think Green Bay can notch it up. Rivalry games always are hit a little different. So
yeah, another cold one, 34 degrees, overcast. So yeah, we'll see if normal. See, Bobby, I'd be so with you if like the Packers were actually good, because the Cowboys never seem to beat like good teams. They seem to just beat up on bad ones. But the Packers qualified as a bad team, so I think I could see them lose. The Cowboys lose for sure, but I think I like them a little bit in this game. Lexi, did you give your pick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the Cowboys, but then you said twice in history. I'm like, damn it! It's like, history is always against me. I feel like so. um, Screw it. No, I can't. I just can't see the Packers pulling this out. They're down so bad, and Aaron Rodgers in just such a rut that I just don't even think their home environment is going to do anything. But could be my famous last words. But I'm taking the Cowboys.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, let's get to our locks of the week. Last week we were almost all winners except for Bobby. I had the Buccaneers beating the Rams, which I almost lost, but Tom Brady at the end, and I had a feeling that I couldn't see a Tom Brady team losing 3 games in a row. And at the end of the game, Tom Brady willed the Buccaneers to beat the Rams, who are down bad right now. So the Buccaneers win outright pick was a win for me. Lexi picks LSU +13.5. Not only did LSU cover, but they beat Alabama, obviously, so that was a win for her. And then Bobby had the over on 49.5 in Atlanta and the Chargers. And that's crazy because, like, the Chargers and the Falcons are just, like, the most, like, I don't even have, like, how do you even describe them?
They
just
play
like
no defense.
They're just
the 1 week they decide to try to play defense. Of course.
Here it is. when you expect anything out of the Chargers and the Falcons, those are the two like franchises, and maybe in all of sports, that will consistently do the opposite of what you want them to do. So that is so you deserved the L in the picking over for 9.5 for that game.
They let their teams down. They let everyone down in this one. Nobody wins. What, a combined 37? Ugh, awful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, we got to do some new locks this week. Lexi, go ahead first. Ladies first. We both win, but I'll let you do your lock first.
Yeah, I don't quite know if Ole Miss is gonna win outright, but they're for sure gonna cover. I don't think Alabama. I have Ole Miss plus 11.5. I don't think the Alabama, if they do pull out a win, is gonna be by more than a touchdown. So, taking Ole Miss plus 11.5.
Yeah, last time I went on a number that was too big, so I'm going to go on a smaller one now. Give me the Buffalo Bills minus 3.5 at home. I think they bounce back, take out the Minnesota Vikings.
All right. Okay, cool. You already typed it in. Perfect. Yeah, definitely love those picks a lot. You know what? I'm gonna stay away. Man, there's a lot of good numbers out there. Man. Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna go with my head and do the over on TCU at Texas. 65 seems a little low to me. Neither of these teams play particularly good defense. I can see this being a very high scoring affair. So yeah, like I think that's pretty. I'm pretty confident in over for that game. So yeah, I will take the over on Texas and TCU.
Okay.
And we'll see how that goes.
We will.
Yeah. Over. Sorry, y'all, for the dead air. Over 65. All right, cool. Well, those are the three locks of the week. I'm taking TCU to go over 65. TCU and Texas to go over. I'm taking TCU at Texas to go over 65. Bobby's taking the Bills minus 3.5. Lexi's taking Ole Miss plus 11.5. 3 fun locks. We'll see if we can all come away with wins on the show next week. Appreciate everyone for listening. Lots of fun. We're going to keep this format going for future shows. We talk about the rankings of the college football playoff, and then get into the games. And we have about a few more weeks left of that, so it should be fun to see how this college football season plays out until we get to conference championships, and that's when the real fun begins. But appreciate everyone again for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys next time right here, wherever you watched, wherever you listen. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you.
See ya.
See y'all.
Bye.